what I want to bring in is this idea of purpose. And oftentimes we talk about purpose in a general form. And what we found from various books that we've looked at, articles that we've looked at, and working with organizations is our cultural transformation framework is really cohesively bringing a holistic view of the individual and the organization. And that applies here also to the purpose. From an individual's perspective, going through change, you're dealing with these issues of, is the change going to end up decreasing the value of my work in the organization? Is it going to increase the tasks, complexity within the organization? Or is there not really any impact? Whereas at the organizational side, we're thinking, why is the change happening now? Everything in this past year is AI connected, right? Got to move into AI. Need to put in systems, need to identify which platform and how we're making use of it and how that impacts our individual workers. And so, why the change? Why now? Why you in terms of the workers within? And bringing that alignment between these individuals, these employees in an organization, and the organization's larger perspective, and aligning it into one area, it's not easy, right? That's why part of change management is such a complex, dynamic, and often flawed process that we run to in organizations. And many of you wrote about that as you shared about your specific challenges with change. Oftentimes it lines up with this issue of purpose. So let me share a little bit about what we have identified with purpose. Often it gets mixed up with the problem, the pain point, and there's a difference between those two. I'm going to go a little bit deeper with that in a minute, but I want to emphasize what we're finding from corporate research. So Gallup, if you haven't heard from Gallup or about Gallup, I encourage you. It's a free reporting that they do, and they do reporting on national and global perspectives using hundreds of thousands of data points and surveys. I think it's a fantastic organization. They did one last year looking at what is the overall employee engagement within organizations. 21%. Isn't that sad? As individuals, we are at a 21% being engaged within the organization. So on an organizational level, how is that impacting organizations globally? 436 billion, that's not million, that's $1 billion, is lost because of that lack of engagement. So this is a serious issue that we're talking about and going through change. Not just that you want to get on the other side, but the process of change, how it's impacting our organizations. Deloitte identified if you have organizational culture that is aligned with the purpose, there is a 2.4% chance or times opportunity for employees to have more meaning in their work. And this was specifically looking at 2026 and the change of human engagement with AI and aligning that redesign. So this is really valuable if we're looking at the numbers. We're pulling in some data. So let's dive a little bit deeper, and let me give you an example that I had in previous lifetime, looking at when I was appointed to a interdisciplinary work group from HR and our leaders. And at the time, this interdisciplinary work group had multiple representatives from the units that were involved in the organization. What we were told and the data we were given was turnover. How many of you have had issues with turnover? It's so easy to solve, right? But we know that turnover is a pain point. It creates inefficiencies. It's a tremendous loss in productivity. It has great financial costs to the organization and to the unit. So our work group was really looked at putting a goal or deliverable of fixing this in some way, of streamlining the onboarding, of developing that strengthening of bringing the employees in. We reviewed the data. We gathered best practices on things decreasing turnover and increasing onboarding to make it effective. We presented our revised onboarding process plan that incorporated everyone and engaged multiple levels, gave that to HR and leadership. They were thumbs up, let's do it immediately, get it started next month. Hiring was done in batches. So new candidates were hired on the 15th of every month. So that next month we enacted this new onboarding process. And then after 6 months, our work group came back together to look at those KPIs, those key performance indicators and metrics, and see, how did everything go? What do you think? Do you think we had a lot of, oh, that was a home run? Yeah, no, I see heads going no. No, it was not. So after we came back and we were feeling the sense of failure, which often we learn our best from failure, we did some deep dive interviews, going and observing the different units from different perspectives. And we really recognize this is a much greater problem than the pain points that were identified. And there was a misalignment from the individual employees level and the organization's expectations and level. The purpose was not clear. The purpose was not prioritized to the individual and the organization at the same time. So we came back to HR and leadership and we shared that we need to build a clear purpose so that we can have employee engagement. We really recognize, let's look at a positive side. How can we pull our organizational culture and bring it into what will strengthen our employees and support the strength of organizational culture? And so laying out the objectives and moving forward with that. So at the 6-month mark thereafter, we're working one goal at a time, which was a much slower, longer process, but we did start to see less turnover and more positivity and the environment and the values in the organization. So we were really pleased with that concept. And part of that process was looking at who we have in the organization. As you're going through change, we often see that there are 3 buckets of people. We have those that are in the skeptic, I don't want to change. We have those that are in the, let me just watch and see what's going to happen. And we have those that are those champions. Well, these 3 groups also could be connected with this idea of clarity of the change. Is the skeptic really clear? Do they really understand the purpose? Sometimes not so much. For the observer, are they observer because they're trying to make sure that are they clear about how it's impacting them, how it's impacting the organization, what's happening in the environment? Is it related to the purpose of what their role is and what the organization's mission is? The champion. Generally, you'll find that those champions clearly understand. They're passionate about the change because they are able to see how it's clear communication, there's a priority, and the purpose is aligned for me individually and with the organization.